Hello. Hello, friends. Hello, friends, and welcome to the 23rd episode of Dust James, Anti-Imperialist America. A lot of folks with their families today. A lot of people barbecuing, staying at home. We only get so much time off from work. We only get so much time with our loved ones. And when there's something is declared a holiday, we like to take the time, spend it together, relax after these long weeks of hard work and these stressful times. Um, I've seen reports that almost a half of Americans or people in the United States are without a job right now. Hundreds of thousands of people are dying from the COVID virus, particularly working folks and colonized folks. Poor black and brown folks are dying from COVID-19. People are wondering how they're going to pay the rent. The evictions are coming up. There's been a rent freeze, and rent's going to be due soon. There's going to be masses of people thrown out into the streets. It's difficult times. And then the 4th of July is celebrating independence from the British, the forming of a new nation. And this was definitely progress. This was a transfer of power from a group of white slave owning elites, the feudal system, a transfer from the all powerful king and a feudal system to the power of a few slave owning elites. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, the like. And for the time period, as the world was coming out of feudalism, this was a step forward. Many peoples, even more progressive forces, have adopted the unit of a republic, which was inspired by or culturally appropriated by the Onondaga Nation, indigenous people. The very concept of a confederacy, a republic, was of concern to the United States, was culturally appropriated from indigenous people. And the idea of a republic has been one of something positive. Um, the Irish Republican Army fought against British colonialism. The People's Democratic Republic of Korea and the People's Republic of China. The formation of a republic is definitely an advancement over a feudal society. But we also I remember as a child, I remember wearing red, white, and blue. I remember being told this country is something good. It stands for something good. And a lot of people that you want to believe that. You want to be hopeful. But it doesn't match the reality of how this country was formed. This country was formed on genocide, on land theft. It was formed, the material basis was formed on the backs of people kept in slavery. And it has never really been exceptional. It was at the forefront of the Industrial Revolution. It basically, in the era of imperialism, it became the leader of the imperialist camp. Really put that starting in World War I and then in World War II. And the United States has been associated with material progress and material goods. But what you don't hear is that material progress and goods was on the backs of colonized people here and colonize people around the world. The system of imperialism. And for a long time in this history, specifically uh, white folks and folks in general, there's been a labor aristocracy. A labor aristocracy is a group of workers um, that have had slightly better material conditions. So they have been used as a bulwark or as a shield, a shield against poor and working class people here, and a shield against unifying with the colonized people around the world. But now is people are becoming unemployed, and we've gone through two crashes. We're on our second major economic crash in my adult lifetime, and each time this empire is decaying and falling. There is rising economic forces, the rise of the Eastern Bloc of China and Russian and other economic power to challenge the polarity, the single polarity of U.S. dominance and the U.S. imperialist camp. And they can no longer afford to keep this labor aristocracy. And this labor aristocracy is no longer needed with the continued development of technology. We're no longer needed on the assembly lines. Their power is falling. Half of Americans are out of work. There is more time than ever to organize and mobilize with oppressed nations within the United States and the oppressed people around the world. As Lenin said, workers of the world and oppressed people unite. There's more time, more than ever. And this understanding is coming from the working class. During when times were well in this country and the working class was built off, the 60s and the 70s, there was an emergence of a left of mostly revolutionary intelligentsia from the petty bourgeois and bourgeois forces. Kind of the hippie movement, the 60s, some anti-war. And it's been unlike previous movements, the Communist Party of the 1930s, who organized unemployment councils. The left in the United States has been largely divorced from the working class. And now as we see material conditions change, a worsening, we can break more people's minds and understandings, free of the bourgeois mindset, free of the decaying imperial mindset. They have our friends and our neighbors to believe that immigrants are the enemy, that poor African American people are the enemy, that the people in Venezuela are the enemy. As our wages decrease, as we have less services, we have less buying power. We're dying without health care. They want to make us believe that people worse off than us are the real problem. That America is good. That America has always been good. They tell you if you just wait and have faith in the American system, things will get better. Police brutality will get better. Vote Biden. Police brutality will get better. The job will come back. Trump's doing great on the economy. The economy will come back. They want us to believe this. This is not the case. The power of those in control, the imperialists, the banking class, the government they control, is not in our interest. If we have any hope of a better future, if we want progress, just as the colonists kicked off the backs of the royalty, we need to kick off our back. The working people and exploiting oppressed people in this country need to kick off the back, need to kick the bankers and the large-scale manufacturers and the oil companies off of our backs if we want progress in this country. This is going to take a long uphill struggle. This is going to take building relationships. This is going to take innovation. This is going to take work. As more people become unemployed and desperate, more of us are going to be willing to put effort into this cause, working people. And it's not going to be like the fight of the intelligentsia, of the hippies in the 60s. This is going to be a new working class, organized struggle for better wages, for health care, for our needs. As Daryl Mitchell would say, debit card communism. We have long produced, the workers and oppressed people of this country have long produced great masses of wealth. Yet, and according to the song Solidarity Forever, the IWW, we stand outcast and starving amidst the wonders we have made. We need to rebuild and reshape society if we want a better future. This is also a time of resistance. People are outraged. People are tired of the lynchings of African American people. People are tired of the police state. And there's been uprisings throughout the country. And there's been attempts to demonize us, call them looters, call them outside agitators. The corporate, the bourgeois media has done everything to try to demonize just people's resistance and uprisings. They've been whipsawing us. They have large portions of the United States backing Trump, who are largely some of the more working class elements of it. Are being pushed to fascism and xenophobia. They have worsening conditions. And the Democratic Party has done nothing for working people. And the absence of a leftist movement, people are going into the direction of fascism, the direction of hate. And they blame, the Republicans are blaming it on the Democratic voters. And the Democrats, who also failed working people, can easily blame it on the Republican voters, another portion of the working class. When the reality is, the Democrats and Republicans are working hand in hand to exploit us, to pay us as little as possible, to give us as little services as possible. The Democrats and the Republicans are working hand in hand to keep working people, black, white, brown, red, indigenous people down and further exploit them. And as we, the working people in the country called the United States of America, and the oppressed nations within the land that is called the United States of America, we need to unite and fight. Poor, black, and brown, unite and fight. And build solidarity. There is a great awakening coming. First, there's an economic revolution. The economic revolution was the computer revolution, where not as much labor is needed. Masses of people out of work, people being able to communicate. It's changed the economy vastly. After an economic revolution comes a social revolution. As masses of people become out of work and are destitute and worried, our standards of living are dropping. These people will join the social revolution. And thirdly, comes a political revolution. This political revolution will be a revolution that will overturn imperialism, that will destroy the power of the banking oil, and large-scale manufacturing class. The only way to celebrate revolution is to have a better and just revolution today. Thanks everybody for joining for this special 4th of July broadcast of Anti-Imperialist America, our 23rd episode. I had the honor of interviewing Matt Cedillo yesterday. Check out that interview. Great poet. Great organization, Telejaguar. Later today, 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in the United States, I will be interviewing another member of Telejaguar, Ernesto Ayala, who has been a huge inspiration on me and my understanding of Chicano people in the United States, a suppressed understanding that you don't hear about, but it's millions of people, the story of millions of people in the belly of the beast. It's very important to our struggle and revolution here, and its importance of global politics. So I'll be interviewing Ernesto Ayala later today. Tune in for that, 3 p.m. Standard Eastern Time. This page is growing. Like this video, share this video out, grow this. I'm just going to go through the comments. If people want to ask questions, say hi, say where you're from. I'll read through the comments. Isla Gatica, good morning. Good morning to you. Red Dundorian, hi Dust. Red Dundorian, I enjoyed your questions when I interviewed Angela Walker. I believe she gave you those were great questions. Thank you for your participation in that. Arctic Angel, hello everyone. Red Dundonian, hey Dust, what do you think of the recent smear job against Caleb? Red Dundonian is referring to kind of a Twitter beef between Caleb Maupin and Bad Empanada. And I mean, it's what I talked about earlier. It's the petty bourgeois, anti-material left. That doesn't recognize, that has no understandings of wanting to or mobilizing the working class against a figure like Caleb, whose slogan is out of the movement to the masses. And that's an important fight. Is Matt Cedillo's fight against the wokosos, the woke gusanos, pushing colonized poor black and brown folks, or mostly particularly brown folks, to support Biden and to support forces that are in coalition with the imperialists to destroy people in Venezuela. That is a major ideological struggle that we have. We need a genuine working class movement for, of, and by the working class and oppressed people's movement that represent our understanding, that stand in solidarity with the anti-imperialist countries around the world. We are going to become the dominant force in political discussion. The time of the petty bourgeoisie, fake leftist is over. And our time is coming. And they're going to start adopting our vocabulary and try to fit in us and say they were down with us, the working class, the whole time. It's La Gatica, smear job where? Arctic Angel, Red Dundurian, smear against Caleb, what happened? Isla Gatica, is it on Twitter? Red Dundurian, Arctic Angel, basically because Caleb sat next to Dungan, he is now a Knotsbull. Arctic Angel, oh no. Red Dundurian at Isla Gatica, yes, but it was on Reddit. Arctic Angel, why is Knotsbull even a thing? It's just weird. Interesting comments. Neen Cray. I don't remember how to spell your name. Um, um, if you want to put it phonetically out there, Nincre. I also enjoyed your Angela Davis, um, vice presidential candidate for the Green Party. Really enjoyed your question that you had on there. Hello, Dust. So nice to be here. Red Dudonian, Arctic Angel, Knotsville is not a real thing. It's nothing but a meme and a smear. Yes, I think there's a trend amongst these petty bourgeois so-called leftist forces to smear anybody that believes in anything, anybody who organizes the working class, anybody who wants to put up statues of someone great, anyone who doesn't simply want to tear down and deconstruct and become the pawns of the CIA. We are being called that like we are the imperialists, like we are the exploiters. Same thing. I mean, I thought that interview I did with Matt Cedillo was really great, and he talked about this new woke crowd is trying to say that Chicano nationalists are somehow imperialists when they're the representation of exploited people and the material understanding. Just because they believe in something and stand for something, we're called the fascists. It's almost like the CIA has developed this like this rampant anti-communist, anti-worker, anti anything pure and good or decent, um, and they've developed it with a leftist clothes and leftist phrasing and leftist sounding ideology, and it's simply used as a battering ram and a gun against the anti-imperialist countries, against working class forces, against oppressed nations within the United States standing up for their people. Um, NE, oppression is the offshoot of us fighting each other. NE also, it is great to see you steadily get new subscribers. And thank you. And thanks for everyone there. Share this out. Spread this information with your friends. Get this message out there. Take little snippets of this video and repost it with a link to the channel. Great to see it. Continue in the discussion. Get in the go. I have posted a lot of comment. I posted a lot of interviews. I have posted new. I do this weekly. I started with this weekly. When I first started this, I did for the first 4 or 5 weeks. I didn't have a single live participant. I did it live, didn't have a single live participant. And now I have 10, 15 people live every time. The comment section's full. It's only going to get bigger. It's only going to get better. I'm developing my speaking voice. I'm absolutely love being a part of this and building a community and dispelling the lies of the empire and winning people to the people's cause, the workers' cause, the great awakening for socialism. For socialism and the end to national oppression, the oppression of oppressed communities here, and the end to the imperialist oppression of our working class, poor, black, and brown brothers and sisters across the world. An end to these wars, an end to the CIA coups. It's going to take us from the belly of the beast to tear this country open and from the ashes anew build a bigger, better, and more just America. Red Dundanian, Dust, have you gotten in touch with the Bundist movement and even the anarchist narrative to talk about the situation there? I'm not. Are you talking to the reactionary, the petty bourgeois reactionary Bundist movement? I'm not sure where you're going with that. So I used to do these for I used to do these for an hour. I might do it for, if I don't get a lot of questions, I might start scaling it back to half an hour, especially that I'm introducing interviews and I'm introducing the study. Join us next week for the study. Go back into the comments. 2.5 hour study session. History of Three Internationals. Great book. You go on my my Facebook page, which there's a direct link from the YouTube page. There's a past event there where you can find the text of this for free online. I recommend folks buying the book. If you can't buy it, there's a text for free online on the Facebook event page for the last one. I'm going to make a new Facebook event page. Also, like the Facebook page. I spread memes there. I spread other anti-imperialist sources from our friends at Telejaguar, the Peace Report, Flame of Liberation. That's a hub for great anti-imperialist memes and understanding. So I'll be studying this with our good friend, comrade, David Fox, next week, 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. Standard Eastern Time. It's going to be a good show. It's going to be great. I didn't mention it in my speech. I think I want to get into this. In the 4th of July celebrations, you always see people that are just jingoous. America, love it or leave it. If you don't love this country, get out. It's this race to the bottom. It's this and they constantly would like to tell you, well, if you don't like this country so much, get out. But they also say, you know who had a good response to that? Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson, which I shared on the Facebook page. A video that was published by Soapbox, another great anti-imperialist news source. Paul Robeson was asked that once. If you don't like it, then leave it. He said no. My father was a slave. His wealth for generations, the wealth of generations of slaves, built up this country. And Paul Robeson is an Afro-American, has every right to share in the wealth that his ancestors built. Us as the workers in this country. Workers and exploited people build everything in this country, and we have every right to be part of what we created, the working class. And they also tell you, well, it's a good thing you can say that because the soldiers died for your right to say that. This is absolutely absurd. In no way, shape, or form did imperialist soldiers, the U.S. hasn't been on the side of justice in a war since World War II. It was only then a force was even worse than Nazis than them that they were on the side of justice. It was only because they put down something worse, the slave system in the Civil War, the Second American Revolution, that they fought for something positive. The Korean War, the Vietnam War. These were all wars against the people, for the interest of the banks, for the interests of the oil class, for the interest of the manufacturers, for the interest of the imperialists, against our interests. The greatest anti-war demonstration in this country was from Aslan, the Chicano Moratorium in 1970, where Chicano people, who to this day are more representative in the armed forces, in the Marines, specifically in the Marines. And the Marines are sent in first and have higher casualty rates. And in Vietnam, the rates of Chicano and Mexican American people and the death count of U.S. soldiers was astronomical compared to the rest of the population. And it's working people that are sent to kill and die in these wars that do nothing for our freedom. They do nothing for us. You want to thank someone for your freedom? Thank a civil liberties activist. The American Civil Liberty Union, I believe, ACLU, was founded by communists. Something you associate with blind patriotic Americanism, the right to free speech, has been safeguarded by an organization that was founded by communists. Communists have been far more democratic and representation of the people's interest than any of the elements of fake bourgeois democracy that is only a prop of lifting up the interest of the banking class, the imperialists or oppressors. The concept, the idea that we live in a democracy is absolutely absurd. With gerrymandering, with the electoral college, when a vote in California is worth 1/100th or 1/300th of a vote in South Dakota, where the media companies and the parties and the rich can use this massive giant material propaganda machine that convince rural voters to vote against their interests. They can use that. There is no democracy when the choices are the embodiment of racism and vile disgustingness in Trump, or the archetype of institutional racism, Joe Biden, who wrote the crime bill. I want to talk a little bit about something I've seen Telejaguar publicizing, and this hits personally. I'm from a high school that's 30 miles down the road. 30 miles down the road from a military base. One of the biggest military bases in the United States, Fort Bragg and Fort Bragg Air Force Base. And there was a news article recently where the soldiers' barrack conditions, they had mold, they had drains that were clogging up. The treatment of people in the military, poor black and brown folks, who are convinced or bribed with promises of housing, of health care, to go and fight against our interests, against our working class brothers and sisters in the third world, are kept in squalid conditions in the base right down the road. And just recently, there was a story that was lynching of a Mexican American, Chicana, an oppressed person, who had joined the military to fight for this horrible, disgusting imperialist system. She was lynched. And then the system, she was lynched. And then the system tried to cover it up, but the people weren't having it. They're speaking out against the lynching of Vanessa Guillen. Working class people should not be joining the imperialist military that treats us like shit when we're there, pushes us out. How many homeless veterans you see on the street? How many people blindly waving that flag, telling us the veterans fought for their freedom? Recognize there's homeless veterans, people with mental disabilities, PTSD, have been cast out in the street to die once they're used up for the system of imperialism. They're not needed. The lynching of Vanessa Guillen, covered up by the military, is a rallying point. It's a rallying point that we're not going to take this. Working people, oppressed people. We should not be joining the U.S. military to fight against our interests. Why? How did our freedoms get in Iraq, Afghanistan? How did our freedoms get in Syria? They're not there. We're fighting against our own interests. It is in the interest of all working people to see anti-imperialist countries build themselves up. They are our ally and a common enemy, U.S. imperialism. U.S. imperialism that has thrown us under the boat, that has stolen our resources, that refuses to pay us decent wages. We can no longer be pawns for U.S. empire. This issue hits me hard. When I was 17 years old, I recognized this. I recognized that these wars were wrong and we shouldn't be a part of them. And I would follow the recruiters, military recruiters getting quotas, military recruiters who are not looking for those who are doing well, military recruiters looking for the people who aren't doing well, going to them and trying to act like they're their savior. Have you thought about a career? Have you thought about college? Here's your way out. Middle class. Here's your way to the American dream. Have you thought about a career? Have you thought about college? Here's your way out. Here's your way to the middle class. Here's your way to the American dream. But first, you got to go murder poor black and brown people around the world to get those material resources. And they'd lie. The military recruiters would lie to us. They would straight out tell us and manipulate, say, oh, you won't go to combat. Oh, it's only for this long. Sign on the dotted line. Sign on the dotted line. People signed up. And they weren't told about that 2/3 of women in the military are sexually abused. They weren't told about the homeless veteran population. They weren't told of the masses of people who come back with PTSD. There's a great song from the late country singer John Prine called Sam Stone. There's a hole in Dad's arm where all the money goes. Jesus died for nothing, I suppose. Sad, destitute, drug addicted veteran who's used up and spit out. This is a common story in working class art and music of people from oppressed nations in the working class who have destroyed themselves fighting against their own interests for the benefit of the people that are destroying our lives and denying us that healthcare, education, and housing and resources in the first place. We produce those houses. We produce that healthcare. That is our healthcare. And they want to hold it against us and say, if you want this, you better go kill those other people. Well, I'm sick of it. And I'm tired of it. I don't want to see another poor black and brown working class person put their life on the line for a system that threw them under the boat 50 years ago. Sorry. We should not be joining the US military. There is a fight right here. There is a fight right here for better wages. There is a fight right here against the lynchings of poor black and brown folks. There is a fight right here against police brutality. There is a fight right here for the resources we produced. In China, 90% of the people own their homes. 90% of the people own their homes. I'm 30 years old. I've been doing my career for over 10 years. I've been trying to get my credit straight, save up enough, get my wife and my family out of this dilapidated trailer. And China, 90% of the people own their own homes. And they do that because they have a government that takes the people into consideration, that gives out loans, that helps people get housing. And this country, it is run by the banks. It is run by the banks. And for us to get this housing, we are forced to deal with the markets. Houses are produced so banks can make profit, so construction companies can make profit. This is capitalism. This is anarchy. This is stupidity. This is inefficient. We need a better system. We need socialism. We should be producing houses for the benefit of the people. We should be producing houses so people can live in them. Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela has given out over 1 million houses to working people. And we're forced to slave for years and years to get a house, or even the dream of getting a house that more and more Americans are being stolen, ripped from. We've got to fight and organize right here. We can't be over there killing fellow poor black and brown people. The fight is here. Arctic Angel, refuse to fight another rich man's war. Nice poster. Thank you. Arctic Angel, need to go now. Okay, have a good time. Annie, do you agree that U.S. new phase globalism shows through its use of proxies, Dajis in the Middle East, Africa and Southeast Asia, Nazis in Europe, and fascists in South America? Annie, proxies is the tool of enslavement on a global scale, and is absolutely right. Is absolutely right. In Libya, the so-called forces that the United States claims to be fighting, Al Qaeda, the Islamic State, were backed. The terrorists were backed and funded by the United States and Libya to destroy the most prosperous nation in Africa. Gaddafi was investing in Libya. He irrigated the deserts. He built up a school system, healthcare, gave people homes. What we're desperately fighting for here, for decent, adequate housing. In Africa, an exploited, colonized continent, Gaddafi was giving people homes. Gaddafi was investing all over Africa, building up African infrastructure. And the United States, under a democratic regime, the Obama-Biden regime, paid the terrorists to destroy Libya and bombed it into the Stone Age. And a slave trade has emerged. The terrorists, the people who wove the flag of a monarchy. This is 4th of July. We're supposed to celebrate the overthrowing of feudalism, the overthrowing of a faraway king. It is the Obama-Biden regime who funded terrorists who waved the flag of the former monarch that Gaddafi overthrew. In Syria, they're funding the White Helmets, terrorists, to destroy Assad, a man who's been building up infrastructure for the Syrian people. They like to claim they are the advocates of human rights when they are the worst as Martin Luther King said, the greatest prevailer of violence in human history is my own government. In the United States, there's an appeal to authority. But all around the world, they use Western leftists, white leftists, petty bourgeois leftists as batarans and attacks in the name of human rights to justify their disgusting actions, like backing monarchists, like backing terrorists to destroy anti-imperialist countries. If there's any hope for the poor black and brown working people in this country, we've got to wake up. We need a great awakening. Talk to our friends and neighbors, read Marxism, study Marxism, understand things on a scientific, dialectic level, understand the world, and make it better. Thank you, comrades. All power to the people.